The relationship between Iran and Israel always been a roller coaster ride, because we can divide Iran and Israel relation into four major phases. The ambivalent period between 1947 to 1953, the friendly period during the era of the Pahlavi dynasty from 1953 to 1979, the worsening period following the Iranian revolution from 1979 to 1990, the ongoing period of open hostility since the end of the Gulf War in 1991. Therefore, from this elaborate timeline, we are witnessing that Iran and the Israel relation went into Cold War or proxy war scenario right after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Because after 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran broke all diplomatic and commercial ties with Israel. Not only that, the theocratic government of Iran does not recognize the legitimacy of Israel as a state. So since 1979, Iran is using their proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas against the Israel interest within the Gulf region and outside the Gulf region. And Israel is using their state machinery to destroy the Iran nuclear program, through which Iran is trying to develop their first nuclear bomb. So here is the catch of the rivalry between them. Israel in any way do not want a nuclear Iran. But the question is, how their relationship reached such a sour point. To discuss this, we have to travel through the history. In 1947, Iran was among 13 countries that voted against the United Nations partition plan for the British Mandate of Palestine. After 2 years of this event, Iran also voted against Israel admissions to the United Nations. Nevertheless, Iran was the second Muslim majority country to recognize Israel as a sovereign state after Turkey. This actually happened after 1953 coup d'etat. After that coup, a pro-Western regime led by Mohammad Reza Pahlavi came as a Shah of Iran. Then relationship between Iran and Israel improved significantly. But after 1979, everything changed dramatically. Iran became hostile towards Israel under the leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini. Iran declared their objective to dissolve the Jewish state Israel. Since then, Iran have been using proxies against Israel. Iran has provided fundings, weapons and the training to the groups including Lebanese Hezbollah, Lebanese Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. These groups have vowed to dissimulate Israel into Greater Palestine. Iran also covertly supported Hezbollah during the South Lebanon conflict, which lasted 15 years from 1985 to 2000. From that event, it turned out into proxy conflict in 2005 between Israel and Iran. Iran was actively involved in supporting Hezbollah during the 2006 Lebanon war, and in parallel began supporting Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, especially in Gaza Strip. Iran has been attacking Israeli interests all across the world since 1985. Among them 1992 Israeli embassy bombing in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and 1994 AMIA bombing. On the other hand, Israel is suspicious about Iran, especially Iran's nuclear program. Israel also allegedly support the militant groups such as People's Mujahideen of Iran, who is advocating to overthrow the present regime of Iran. Israel also support a group called Jundallah, also known as People's Resistance Movement of Iran, which was a Sunni militant organization based in Sistan and Balochistan province of Iran. They were fighting for the equal rights of Sunni Muslims in Iran. But the relationship between Iran and Israel reached its tipping point when Iran expressed their desire to develop the nuclear bomb. Iran with a nuclear bomb will boil the whole Gulf region. Not only Israel, but other Gulf countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman and the Bahrain will face the similar kind of threat what Israel is facing today. But because of the Iran's nuclear program, USA is responsible for this somehow. Iran nuclear program was launched in 1950s with the help of the United States under the program called the Atoms of Peace program. In 1970, Iran even ratified the Non-Proliferation Treaty, limiting its nuclear program to the peaceful use and making its nuclear program subject to inspection by the International Atomic Energy Agency. After 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran continued its nuclear program on a clandestine basis. Iran had been producing electricity using uranium even after 1979 Islamic Revolution. But things became concerning in the 2000s, when revelations of the Iran's clandestine uranium enrichment program raised concern that the program might be intended for non-peaceful use. IAEA launched an investigation after that in 2003 to find out whether Iran is using enriched uranium to develop nuclear bomb or not. In 2006, Because of Iran's NPT obligations, the United Nations Security Council demanded that Iran must suspend its uranium enrichment program. In 2007, the United States National Intelligence estimated that the Iran halted an alleged active nuclear weapons program in 2003. In 2011, IAEA reported credible evidence that the Iran had been conducting experiments aiming at designing a nuclear bomb until 2003, and the research may have conducted on a smaller scale after that time. But on contrary, IAEA on 1st May 2018 reiterated about its own 2015 report, saying that it has found no credible evidence of nuclear weapons in Iran. The report, which came out in 2015 by the IAEA, that report came out because West was trying to stop Iran in developing the nuclear weapon by lifting the sanction against Iran through Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, commonly known as Iran Nuclear Deal. Under that deal, Iran shipped 25,000 pounds of enriched uranium out of the country, then dismantled and removed 2/3 of its centrifuges. They also removed Calandria from its heavy water reactor and filled it with concrete. The last one they did, they provided unprecedented access to its nuclear facilities and supply chain to IAEA and United Nations Security Council. But that deal irked Israel and Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. The deal was eventually broken when Donald Trump became the president of the United States. However, after Donald Trump, when Joe Biden became president, he is trying to revive that deal. But the deal has not been finalized because of the pressure from Israel and Gulf countries. Here in this case, Israel has been trying to sabotage Iran's nuclear mission by allegedly assassinating Iranian nuclear scientists since 2000s. Between 2010 and 2012, 4 Iranian nuclear scientists, Masoud Ali Mohammadi, Majid Shahiri, Darawshi Rajainejad and Mustafa Ahmadi Roshans were assassinated, while another scientist, Faryud Abbasi, was injured. In 2020, another Iranian scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was killed by the remote-controlled weapon, and Iran directly blamed Israel for that killing, but Israel denied of any hand on it. According to a British paper, a team of 20 consisting of Israelis and the Iranians were involved in eliminating Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. But things never end after that event. After that event, the escalations even increased between these two arch-rivals. Very recently, several events are pushing their arch-rivalry towards full-fledged war. Israel recently conducted airstrike against Iran using drone in the Syrian city Damascus. In that drone strike, Israel killed 2 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps officers on March 7. On that strike also, Israel destroyed airstrip of the Damascus airport to stop the Iranians' weapon smuggling. Also, a Revolutionary Guards was shot dead in Tehran. On June 13, 2022, 2 Iranian scientists died of food poisoning 400 miles apart. They both died within the days of each other. Iran believes Israel killed them by poisoning their food. One of them, Ayoub Entezari, was an aeronautical engineer who worked for a military research center, and the other one, the Kamran Aghamolaei, was a geologist. Compounding mystery behind their deaths, Israeli media and the Persian news channels abroad reported that Mr. Aghamolaei worked at Iran Natanz nuclear facility. Mr. Entezari was on other side working on the missiles and the airplane turbines project for a government aerospace center in the city of Iyaz, about 390 miles southeast of the capital Tehran. Anyway, Mr. Entezari was invited to attend a dinner party. From there, he was affected of food poisoning, and the host of the dinner party was disappeared after that event. In case of Aghamolaei, the scenario is totally different. He had just returned to the Tehran from a business trip to the northwestern city of Tabriz, when he developed the intense nausea and the diarrhea. After that, he died. Now, because of these events, Iran is now trying to take revenge against Israel by taking down Israeli citizens in Turkish city Istanbul. Iran is not only hunting for the Israelis in the Istanbul, but they are also hunting for the Israelis in UAE, Bahrain, Jordan and Egypt. Because of that, Israel is advising its citizens to leave Istanbul immediately. They are not advising their citizens to travel Istanbul for the non-essential work. In case of UAE, Bahrain, Jordan and Egypt, the travel advisory is also same. Iran is also not sitting idle against Israel. Iran has already started their action against Israel. The cyber attack allegedly generated from Tehran behind the false siren alerts in Jerusalem and Eilat today. The Cyber Directorate is examining the impact of the event. The Jerusalem residents reported the hearing the sirens in the city's Katamonim, Beit Hakaram and Neve Yaakov neighborhoods. They said the alerts lasted for nearly an hour. On March 13, the Tehran has also conducted the missile attack on North Iraqi city of Arbil, which is a strategic post for Israel to control the ISIL. In 2020, Tehran also did cyber attack against Israel's water supply system to cripple the Israel's water distribution. Iran and Israel have been directly clashing for 5 years now, and there have been a clear trends of escalation. These two countries are trying to destroy each other in the name of national security and regional peace. Recently, news have surfaced about the Israeli F-35 fighters. Israel has retrofitted their own F-35 fighter for Iranian invasion without refueling in media to conduct an attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel is showing their desperation to destroy the Iranian nuclear facilities because recently a satellite image have revealed that the Iran is conducting a advanced nuclear missile test or advanced missile test. May not be the nuclear but advanced missile test. So things are getting murkier for the Gulf regions and the countries within that region. If anywhere happen between these two powerful nations, then it will spill over the whole world. So world need to take some decisive steps through the United Nations. The United Nations have to take some decisive steps to stop this inevitable war. They should not fail the way they failed the world on the Ukrainian war. Now the two questions like the other days. The first question is, what is the Middle East known as? The first option is Islam land, second option is meeting place, third option is crossroads of the world, fourth option is Asia Africa. The second question is, what is the capital city of Israel? First option is Jerusalem, second option is Tel Aviv, third option is Haifa, fourth option is Batiam. So this is the end of the topic. So if you have any question regarding this topic or any other topic, or if you have any other kind of inquiry, then you can contact me through my email address, which is tuhin.power.academy@gmail.com. So if you found my topic informative, then please subscribe my channel. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support.